and get it sort of 13 or 14 years out. So it seems at first that there might be a point there, but during the course of all my studies, I found a lot of people who've had altered states of consciousness. By that I mean out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, sacred plant experiences, remote viewers, people who've been alien abducted, so to speak, or people who've had lucid dream experiences, or even people who've had hypnotic progression into the future. All these people have come back from these altered states of consciousness speaking specifically about 2012, and they knew nothing about it in many cases beforehand, and I've spoken to several of them. So this implies that there is something specific about that particular year, rather than, that seems to be a focus point in this process.
Yes.
But whether or not it's actually can be seen as a point where time rushes into itself, I mean, the time wave seems to imply, that everything is rushing up to this point, and then bang, it's like everything will be completely different after this one microsecond in time.
Yes. Do you think that's valid? Is it? I mean, can we see it in one way? Because I'm thinking back here. You mentioned a little bit about that after 2000 we were kind of beginning to go into this spiraling process, and this is going to go faster and faster. We can look at some things, of course, like Moore's law when it comes to computers, like the computer revolution, if you will, that things are moving faster and faster on how much information we can process. We have the sequencing of the human genome sometime around or slightly after 2000. Biological science, hence, is speeding up, as it were. Do you think that's a little bit of what we can call evidence for that, if you will?
Yes, I do, because everything. If you look around us, as you say, everything you can see it in your own lifetime, how things are speeding up. Just the amount of time it takes before your your technology goes out of date. If you buy a new DVD player or a computer, it's getting a shorter and shorter time before they're bringing out the next model. Everything like that is speeding up, and a lot of people concur that they sense the speeding up of things as well.
Yes.
I mean, in our grandparents' day, the price of bread didn't change for years on end. But you can see it in your own life.
But sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that also a reflection that this is something that is happening within the human world, so to speak? Because I'm thinking about this, and all the things that are, I think, changing rapidly in that faster and faster pace is all the things that we are creating. It's our markets, it's our technology, our kind of updates, if you will. But nature, as far as I can see, is chugging along nice and easy, just as before. What do you think?
Well, that is true, but then I think we are probably talking about a shift in the human mind when we come down to it. I mean, of course, we have an impact on the environment, and they say another thing that is speeding up, so they say, is that there are an amount of creatures now going extinct that is equal to or beyond some of the geological boundaries in the past, where we've had huge wipeouts of species in the past, and that's visible between the geological strata. There are people saying that we're at a state now where that many species are going extinct at the moment. So yes, you could say that that's a kind of speeding up, which is not. It's probably, I mean, a lot of those that could be put down to man's activities on the Earth.
Could be, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
But we do have an impact on various other systems on the planet, of course.
Yeah. So you mentioned information and doubling, of course, and that the tightening, if you will, of this spiral, of this knot, of this fractal ratio. Many people have looked at this when we're approaching this point, then, that this is going to be some kind of singularity, as you mentioned. That this is an instantaneous point from which afterwards, of course, now we won't know what is going to happen afterwards, because things will be so radically different, and people talk about the technological singularity, that they talk about a singularity when it comes to some kind of evolution. What do you think about that? Have you been able to pinpoint that, or do you favor one theory above another?
I try to, this is where the old Robert Anton Wilson approach comes in handy, of trying to hold several models and just seeing them as models for what is going on, because we're always trying to reduce things to something that we can handle. But in fact, I mean, this is one of McKenna's favourite sayings. I think it was JBS Haldane he was quoting. Life is not only stranger than you suppose, it's stranger than you can suppose. Yeah. And then he said that gives a lot of permission for supposing. So I think the more able you are to hold several models, I mean, this happens in the quantum world. There's no one model that covers all the phenomena.
Right.
You have to basically use the model that's most appropriate for covering whatever it is you're studying at the time, but don't get too attached to it and hold back. I think this is probably all part of the process that we are supposed to, develop our minds in that way, that they can become more broad-minded and able to take on various different concepts.
That is interesting. So do you imply a little bit that this whole phenomena, if you will, of 2012 could also be, because I've heard many people talk about the idea that we will be able to, in some form or another, be more participatory, if you will, or creators even of our own reality, if you will. This, of course, could have its roots in technology, if we look at it that way. But it could also be, if we look at it from quantum mechanics or quantum physics, as we begin to understand those concepts more, we also consequently might understand that what we focus on, what type of world we want to live in, that is very much part of this. And after that point, after 2012, that could be one of the reasons why, I've heard remote viewers have difficulty, peering through beyond 2012 and looking after that point and so forth, because things seem to be just a blurred, because the possibility here I'm getting at is that there could be so many different variations and so many different paths that people go down on, that the journey after this point will be very much individual journey. What do you think about a concept like that?
Well, I think this is why it's important to try and I don't believe in putting your head in the sand. That's why I've looked at all the catastrophe theories and everything. But in fact, when you look at these catastrophe theories, many of them turn out to be based on poor research. But it's important overall to try and keep an optimistic outlook on things for this very reason, because of this concept that we do have a potential of actually creating the future by mass concentration on it. I mean, it's a well-known phenomenon in the area of medicine, where if someone is optimistic about their recovery, they're accepted as being much more likely to recover. Yes. And you could say that the Earth itself is in a position now where it's kind of ill, and if we can all concentrate on a recovery, it's much more liable to happen.
That's a good. I think that's a good approach, and healthy as well, because you mentioned that many of these catastrophe theories, so to speak, are poorly researched. Tell us a little bit more about that, because that's very interesting. One thing that I've been encountering, of course, is that in 2003 Planet X is going to head by, and in 2005 we're going to have a pole shift, and on and on we go. But here we are again. In a way, we have potentially maybe a little bit more hurricanes. I don't know if that's true or not. Some people say that there are more volcanic activity, but at least it's not as catastrophic as I imagined, many years ago. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've looked at the increasing Earth changes, and I did check up. Michael Mandeville's produced some graphs that he got from an earthquake information center, and I checked that information on a different earthquake information center, and it very closely followed his conclusion that over the recent years we do have an increase in seismic activity. There was a slight bump on the graph on the information database that I followed, which wasn't on his one, but generally it was very close. So, yeah, I do think that the Earth changes are increasing, but something I found. I mean, have you heard anything about Alexei Dmitriev's work?
No, I might have heard about his work, but I don't recognize his name. Tell us about it.
Alexei Dmitriev is a Russian geologist, and he's written a paper which is on the Millennium Group website actually, and he specialises in looking at what he calls vacuum domains. This is broadly speaking, it's what we call balls of light. So he's made a study of those, of which there are. I think there's over 10 different varieties. They've all got a slightly different combination of properties, but generally speaking, they emit quite a high electromagnetic field which interferes with electronic devices. They're plasma balls, and they go in and out of the visible spectrum, and they can travel through solid objects. But they've all got slightly different combination of qualities depending on how they're classed. There's earthquake lights and will-o'-the-wisps, and there are a whole bunch of these that have been photographed interacting with crop formations. But there are there's those Foo Fighters. That was another instance of them. I think on my website, I think I have got a link. Well, I've definitely linked to it in the references in the book. Another paper that's on the Millennium Group site by Dmitriev, where he's studying these various types of balls of light. Basically, that fits in with the other material that he's put out, which is he starts off in this paper saying that the Russians have been sending satellites up for some years to look at the edge of the heliosphere, and that there is a huge build-up of interstellar plasma that's collected on the edge of the heliosphere, which is the edge of our solar system, beyond the furthest planets, where the sun pumps out its solar rays, and where those hit interstellar space, that's the edge of the heliosphere. Mm-hmm. And as the whole solar system goes through interstellar space, it's like a boat going through water. There's a bow wave at the front, and there's a build-up of stuff that gets caught on the front end. Some of it deflects through, and some doesn't.
And this is our protective bubble, isn't it, from cosmic rays?
Yes. But there's this. Well, they found this massive build-up of interstellar plasma on the edge of the heliosphere, and he says that it's bleeding through to the sun, and then the sun is sending it out on its own equatorial plane, where it's affecting the atmospheres and magnetic fields of all the planets in the solar system. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just the Earth that is experiencing changes to the atmosphere and magnetism. It's happening on every single planet in the solar system.
Yes.
So basically, he says it's down to this plasma, and he also says that that we've got a huge plasma overdraft in the solar system, is what he calls it, and that it's building up in our atmosphere and causing an increase in these anomalous light phenomena, these balls of light, and that that's a whole another study as to how they're interacting with people, but right. It seems from other sources that these balls of light have many of the qualities of life itself. Hmm. They can be although they're only transient life forms, if they are life forms, they do seem to act just like living creatures for a short period of time in which they exist. So it could be that he calls them vacuum domains because there's one group of them that exist at the centre of tornado lights, and that is a vacuum. But it could be because when a tornado's passed, you get a breaking of the laws of physics. You get all sorts of crazy things like sticks embedded into glass without breaking the glass or the stick, and